I pulled into my parents' driveway that 4th of July afternoon, watching smoke rise from the backyard grill where my father, Frank, was already flipping burgers. The familiar sounds of family chatter and kids playing drifted through the warm summer air. My golden retriever Buddy stuck his head out the passenger window tail, wagging at the prospect of getting spoiled by relatives who always slipped him table scraps. I grabbed the manila folder from my glove compartment, something I had been carrying for weeks, unsure when or if I would ever use it. Walking through the back gate, I was greeted by the usual crowd. My younger brother Jake sat at the picnic table with his wife Sarah, bouncing their 6-month-old daughter Emma on his knee. The baby giggled as Jake made silly faces, completely absorbed in fatherhood. My mother Helen was arranging potato salad and coleslaw on the red checkered tablecloth, while my Uncle Marcus and Aunt Diane argued good-naturedly about baseball standings. Everything seemed perfectly normal until my father clinked his beer bottle with a fork and announced he had something important to discuss with the family. The legal proceedings moved forward rapidly as prosecutors built cases against both Sarah and Derek for multiple felony charges. The evidence I had collected, combined with law enforcement investigations, provided overwhelming proof of systematic criminal activity that could result in significant prison sentences. Sarah faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted on all charges, District Attorney Patricia Chen explained during a victim impact meeting. Derek faces similar charges plus additional counts related to his role in organizing the criminal conspiracy and recruiting family members to participate in identity theft. Jake's decision about Emma's custody became the most emotionally challenging aspect of the entire situation. Despite learning that Emma wasn't his biological daughter, Jake had formed a genuine parental bond with the baby during her first 6 months of life. He petitioned the court for custody while Derek remained in jail awaiting trial. Emma is innocent in all of this, Jake explained to the family. She needs stability and love regardless of her biological parentage. I've been her father since birth, and I want to continue raising her if the court allows it. The custody hearing resulted in Jake being awarded full legal guardianship of Emma, with Derek's parental rights being terminated due to his criminal convictions and abandonment of the child. Sarah's rights were suspended pending the outcome of her criminal trial, but her fraudulent activities and planned abandonment of Emma supported Jake's custody petition. 6 months after the arrest, both Sarah and Derek were convicted on multiple felony charges and sentenced to substantial prison terms. Sarah received 12 years in federal prison for identity theft, bank fraud, and conspiracy charges. Derek received 14 years for his leadership role in the criminal organization and his responsibility for recruiting family members to participate in the fraud. Justice has been served, Detective Santos told me during the final case review. Your investigation prevented additional families from being victimized and helped us dismantle a sophisticated criminal network that had been operating for several years. The financial restitution process recovered most of the stolen money, allowing Jake to rebuild his savings and establish financial security for himself and Emma. The family's retirement accounts and property remained protected, and the credit monitoring services prevented additional identity theft attempts. 1 year after that devastating 4th of July barbecue, our family gathered again in the same backyard for Emma's second birthday celebration. The atmosphere was completely different from the previous year's tension and manipulation. Jake had transformed into a confident single father who understood the difference between genuine love and emotional manipulation. Emma was walking and talking, calling Jake Daddy with the pure affection of a child who knew she was loved and protected. I can't believe how much has changed in just 1 year, Jake said, watching Emma play with Buddy in the grass. Last year, I thought I had everything figured out with my marriage and family life. I had no idea I was living in a complete fantasy built on lies and manipulation. Frank approached me with the humility of a man who had learned painful lessons about judgment and family loyalty. Lou, I need to say this again in front of everyone. My announcement about the house transfer was wrong on multiple levels. I let traditional expectations blind me to the real threats facing our family. Your investigation saved all of us from financial ruin and protected Jake from career destruction. Helen had developed a much closer relationship with me over the past year, respecting my analytical thinking and protective instincts, rather than criticizing my lifestyle choices. I spent years pressuring you to get married and settle down, not realizing that your careful approach to relationships was actually wisdom. You saw through Sarah's manipulation when the rest of us were fooled by her performance. The family's perspective on my single lifestyle had evolved completely. Instead of viewing my independence as selfishness or immaturity, they now understood that my cautious approach to relationships had protected me from manipulation, while allowing me to maintain the resources and freedom necessary to protect them when criminals targeted our family. Your analytical skills and investigative instincts saved our family, Uncle Marcus said during the birthday celebration. If you had been married with children of your own, you might not have had the time or resources to conduct such a thorough investigation of Sarah's activities. Jake's dating life had resumed gradually, but with much greater wisdom about recognizing genuine versus manipulated emotions. He attended support groups for victims of financial abuse and learned to identify red flags that he had missed during his relationship with Sarah. His new relationships were built on mutual respect and genuine compatibility, rather than emotional manipulation and manufactured crisis. I'm taking things much slower now, Jake explained to me during a private conversation. I'm learning to trust my instincts and question inconsistencies instead of making excuses for suspicious behavior. The counseling has helped me understand how predators exploit people's desire for love and acceptance. Emma's custody arrangement remained stable and positive. Despite not being Jake's biological daughter, she thrived under his care and developed a secure attachment to him as her primary parent. Derek's imprisonment and conviction meant that he had no legal rights regarding Emma's welfare, and Sarah's continued incarceration eliminated any possibility of her disrupting Emma's stable home life. Emma doesn't remember Sarah, and I think that's probably for the best, Jake said, watching her chase butterflies in the garden. She'll know the truth about her biological parents when she's old enough to understand, but for now, she has the security of knowing she's loved and wanted by the family that chose to keep her safe. My own romantic life had evolved in ways that surprised the family. 6 months after Sarah's arrest, I introduced them to Amanda Chen, a cybersecurity specialist who had actually helped analyze the digital evidence against Sarah and Derek. Our relationship had been developing privately for 18 months, but I had kept it confidential to protect Amanda from family pressure and expectations. Amanda's expertise in financial fraud investigations was invaluable. I explained to the family during our announcement. She helped trace the digital trail of Sarah and Derek's criminal activities and assisted law enforcement in recovering stolen assets from multiple families. Frank's reaction to meeting Amanda was completely different from his previous criticism of my lifestyle. I'm impressed by both of your professional skills and the way you protected our family from sophisticated criminals. Your partnership clearly extends beyond romantic compatibility into genuine mutual support and shared values. Helen welcomed Amanda warmly, appreciating her intelligence and her contributions to protecting the family. I spent so much time worrying about Lou being alone that I never considered he might be building something meaningful with someone who truly understood and complemented his strengths. Amanda and I announced our engagement during Emma's birthday celebration, explaining that we had purchased a house together in the same neighborhood where Jake and Emma lived. The family's response was overwhelmingly positive, recognizing that our relationship was built on genuine compatibility and shared goals rather than social pressure or manufactured expectations. We're planning a small wedding next spring, Amanda told the family. Lou and I both prefer intimate gatherings with people we genuinely care about, rather than large social events designed to meet other people's expectations. Jake's career had flourished in the aftermath of the criminal case. His careful documentation of the fraud and his cooperation with law enforcement had earned recognition from the school district and the state education department. He was invited to speak at conferences about recognizing and preventing financial abuse, helping other potential victims learn from his experience. I never thought I'd become an advocate for fraud prevention, Jake said during one of our family dinners. But if sharing my story helps other people recognize manipulation and protect themselves from reality, learned about your desire to prove yourself to the family, and exploited your generous nature. Every major decision in your relationship was calculated to give her financial access while making you feel like a protective provider. Sarah's defensive strategy collapsed as Jake found his own bank records among the evidence. He had been carrying $15,000 in credit card debt that he didn't remember accumulating with purchases at businesses he had never visited. The financial manipulation extended to forged signatures on loan applications that Jake discovered among the paperwork, putting him $30,000 in debt for Derek's gym equipment purchases. "You signed my name to loan documents," Jake said, his voice filled with disbelief. "You committed fraud using my identity." "I was trying to build something for our future," Sarah protested weakly. "Derek's gym was going to be successful, and we could have paid back everything with interest." Frank's traditional worldview struggled to process the evidence of systematic fraud within his son's marriage. "There has to be some misunderstanding here. Young couples have financial disagreements all the time." "This isn't a disagreement, Dad," I said, pulling out my phone. "This is criminal activity, and it's about to get much worse." I played an audio recording that had been the most difficult piece of evidence to collect. Sarah's voice came through clearly recorded during a conversation at my house 6 months earlier, when she had stopped by unexpectedly while Jake was at a faculty meeting. "Lou, I know you think I'm not good enough for your brother, but what if I told you that could change Jake's suite? But he's never going to make real money as a teacher. You, on the other hand, have that successful consulting business and this beautiful house. If you helped me get out of this marriage gracefully, we could explore what might develop between us." The recording continued with Sarah offering to leave Jake if I would provide her with financial security, specifically suggesting I buy her a condominium where we could get to know each other better, without family complications. I had secretly recorded the conversation because her behavior had already raised red flags, and I suspected she might attempt to manipulate multiple family members. Jake's reaction to hearing his wife proposition his brother was devastating to witness. He stood up from the picnic table, walked to the fence, and stood with his back to everyone for several long minutes. When he turned around, his eyes were filled with tears and a hardened resolve I had never seen before. "She tried to seduce you too," he said quietly. "This whole marriage, everything I thought was real, it was all just a game to her." Sarah's desperate attempts to salvage the situation only made things worse. That conversation was taken out of context. I was emotional and confused about my feelings. People say things they don't mean when they're struggling with new motherhood. "The recording is 22 minutes long," I said grimly. "You described specific financial arrangements, discussed timeline for leaving Jake, and even suggested ways to manipulate the divorce proceedings to maximize your settlement. This wasn't emotional confusion, Sarah. This was calculated planning." The extended family members who had initially supported the house transfer plan began reevaluating their positions as the evidence mounted. Aunt Diane whispered to Marcus that she had noticed Sarah asking unusual questions about family finances during previous gatherings. Uncle Marcus admitted he had found it strange when Sarah inquired about his small business accounting practices and investment strategies during casual conversations. "How long has this been going on?" Helen asked, her voice shaking. "That's the worst part," I replied, pulling out the final set of documents that would completely destroy any remaining illusions about Sarah's innocence. According to Janet's investigation, Sarah and Derek have been running this scam for over 2 years, targeting multiple families through carefully researched social connections. The investigation had uncovered a pattern of behavior that extended far beyond Jake's marriage. Derek Martinez owned a struggling fitness center that was hemorrhaging money due to poor management and excessive equipment loans. Sarah had a history of targeting men from financially stable families, using pregnancy scares and emotional manipulation to gain access to bank accounts and credit lines. Janet Mills had discovered that Sarah's previous relationship had ended abruptly when her boyfriend's family became suspicious of unexplained financial discrepancies. Derek's sister works at the elementary school where Jake teaches, I explained, watching Jake's face as he processed this information. Carmen Martinez has been feeding them information about our family for over a year, including details about Jake's salary, his savings goals, and even personal information about his desire to start a family. Jake sat back down heavily, the full scope of the conspiracy becoming clear. Carmen always seemed so friendly and supportive when I talked about Sarah during our lunch breaks. She would ask about our wedding plans, our finances, our family dynamics. I thought she was just being nice. She was gathering intelligence, I said. Sarah's pregnancy wasn't accidental timing, Jake. It was carefully calculated to coincide with your probationary period at the school when you were most vulnerable and eager to prove your stability to the administration and to our family. The evidence showed that Sarah had researched our family through social media profiles, learning about Frank's traditional values regarding marriage and responsibility. Helen's concerns about my single lifestyle and the general family pressure for both Jake and me to settle down and have children. She had even studied photographs from previous family gatherings to understand family dynamics and identify potential pressure points. Look at these Facebook searches, I said, showing Jake screenshots of Sarah's social media activity. She researched every member of our extended family 6 months before she ever accidentally met you at that coffee shop downtown. She knew Marcus owned a small construction business, she knew Diane worked at the bank, and she knew exactly how to present herself as the perfect daughter-in-law. Sarah's supposed chance encounter with Jake at the downtown coffee shop had actually been carefully orchestrated. Derek's gym was located 2 blocks from Jake's school, and Sarah had observed Jake's routine for weeks before staging their first meeting. She had researched his coffee preferences, his schedule between teaching and tutoring sessions, and even his favorite topics of conversation, by listening to Carmen's reports about faculty meetings. Every single thing about our relationship was fake. Jake said, his voice filled with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. The books she claimed to love, the movies she said were her favorites, even her supposed interest in education reform. She was just telling me what I wanted to hear. The financial manipulation extended beyond simple theft. Sarah had convinced Jake to collect important family documents for what she claimed was wedding planning and future financial security for Emma. But Janet's investigation revealed that Sarah had photographed these documents and attempted to use family members' personal information for credit applications and identity theft. She tried to open a credit card using Dad's social security number last month, I said, pulling out bank security reports. The application was flagged because the address didn't match, but she had all of his personal information, including his mother's maiden name and previous addresses. Frank's face went white as he realized how close the family had come to serious financial damage. She was in our house multiple times, helping Helen with holiday preparations, playing with Emma in the living room. She could have accessed any of our personal documents. The scope of the conspiracy became even more disturbing when I revealed Derek and Sarah's long-term planning. They had targeted Jake specifically because his teacher's pension and family connections represented long-term financial stability. Derek's gym was deeply in debt, but with access to Jake's credit and family connections, they had planned to expand the business and eventually disappear with substantial assets. Bank security cameras show Sarah attempting to withdraw money from your joint account with Mom, I told Frank, showing him surveillance photos. She claimed it was for emergency medical expenses for Emma, but the timing corresponds exactly with Derek's gym rent being due. She was testing how much access she could gain to family finances. Helen gasped as she recognized Sarah in the bank security footage. She told me she was just running errands when she offered to make that bank deposit for me. I never imagined she was trying to steal money from our account. The evidence revealed that Sarah had been slowly escalating her theft, starting with small amounts from Jake's personal accounts and gradually working toward larger family assets. The house transfer plan that Frank had announced was actually the culmination of months of manipulation, with Sarah convincing Frank that Jake needed more space, while subtly suggesting that Lou's single lifestyle made him undeserving of such a valuable property. She played all of us, I said, looking around the table at family members who were still processing the scope of the deception. Sarah spent months studying our family dynamics, learning our weaknesses, and positioning herself as the perfect daughter-in-law while systematically planning to rob us blind. Jake discovered that their joint credit card had been used for purchases. He had never seen expensive dinners at restaurants. He had never visited hotel rooms during weekends when Sarah claimed to be visiting her sister, and cash advances that funded Derek's personal expenses. The paper trail showed a pattern of financial abuse that had been carefully hidden from Jake through manipulated statements and forged signatures. "I need to call the police," Jake said quietly, his hands shaking as he held Emma, who had no idea that her entire world was falling apart around her. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I called them 20 minutes ago. They should be here any moment." Sarah's eyes widened with panic as she realized the trap she had walked into. But I wasn't finished revealing the full scope of her criminal activity. The most shocking evidence was still to come, and it would prove that this entire family barbecue had been carefully orchestrated to expose her crimes in front of witnesses who could testify to her reactions and admissions. The investigation had revealed that Sarah's connection to Derek began 2 years before she ever met Jake, contradicting her claims about a brief relationship or accidental pregnancy. Janet Mills had uncovered employment records showing that Sarah had worked part-time at Derek's gym as a receptionist, giving her access to membership information and personal details about clients from affluent families throughout the city. They weren't just targeting Jake, I explained, spreading out more documents. Sarah and Derek developed a systematic approach to identify and manipulate men from financially stable families. They researched potential targets through gym memberships, school employee directories, and social media connections. Jake stared at membership lists from Derek's gym that included several teachers from his school district, local business owners, and young professionals who matched their target profile. Sarah had maintained detailed notes about each potential mark, including family backgrounds, financial situations, and personality traits that could be exploited for manipulation. "Look at these profiles," I said, showing Jake handwritten notes in Sarah's distinctive handwriting. "She documented your student loan debt, your family relationships, your desire to prove yourself as responsible and mature. She knew exactly which emotional buttons to push to make you fall in love with her fabricated personality." See, the conspiracy extended beyond financial theft into comprehensive identity research. Sarah had used her part-time job at a medical office to access personal information through insurance databases, gathering social security numbers, addresses, and family member details that could be used for fraud. Derek's gym provided additional opportunities to observe and research potential targets during their workout routines and casual conversations. "Carmen Martinez wasn't just providing information about you," I continued. "She was part of an organized network. Derek has 2 other sisters working at different schools in the district, plus a cousin who works at the county courthouse with access to marriage license applications and property records." Jake's face reflected the devastating realization that his entire relationship had been built on systematic deception involving multiple conspirators. Sarah had never loved him or wanted a family with him. He was simply a carefully selected target, chosen for his financial potential and emotional vulnerability. "The timing of her pregnancy announcement wasn't coincidental," I said, pulling out medical records that Janet had obtained through legal channels. "Sarah had been tracking your probationary period at school, waiting for the moment when you would be most desperate to prove your stability and maturity to both the administration and our family." Helen clutched Frank's arm as she processed the scope of the manipulation. She played us all against each other, making Lou look irresponsible and selfish while positioning herself as the perfect family woman who just needed our support. The evidence showed that Sarah had carefully cultivated relationships with different family members, gathering information about financial assets, personal conflicts, and family dynamics that could be exploited. She had encouraged Helen's criticism of my lifestyle while sympathizing with Frank's traditional values about marriage and responsibility. "Sarah knew about the family pressure for me to settle down," I said. "She used that information to position Jake's marriage as the responsible choice, while making my single lifestyle appear selfish and immature." The house transfer idea didn't come from Dad originally. Sarah planted that suggestion through months of subtle manipulation. Jake found text messages on Sarah's phone that revealed the depth of the conspiracy. She had been coordinating with Derek throughout their marriage, reporting on family financial discussions, sharing photographs of important documents, and planning their next moves based on information gathered during family gatherings. She photographed your tax returns, your investment statements, and even took pictures of family financial documents during holiday visits. I said, showing Jake surveillance camera footage from my home security system. 2 weeks ago, Sarah and Derek attempted to break into my house using the spare key you gave her for emergencies. The security footage showed Sarah and Derek searching my home office, photographing financial documents, and attempting to access my computer files. They were looking for information about property deeds, investment accounts, and business contracts that could be used for identity theft or fraudulent loan applications. They were planning to forge documents claiming that I had already agreed to transfer the house, I explained. Derek brought a portable scanner to copy important papers, and Sarah had prepared fake text messages and email conversations to support their fraudulent claims. Frank's anger finally shifted away from me and toward the criminals who had infiltrated our family. They were planning to steal everything. The house, our retirement savings, Jake's pension fund. This wasn't just about marriage fraud. This was about destroying our entire family financially. The investigation revealed that Sarah and Derek had successfully executed similar scams against 3 other families over the past 2 years. They would identify a target. Sarah would initiate a romantic relationship, and they would systematically drain financial resources before disappearing and starting the process again with new victims. One family lost over $80,000 in fraudulent loans and credit card debt, I said. Another family had their business destroyed when Derek used stolen financial information to divert supplier payments to accounts he controlled. These aren't amateur criminals. They're sophisticated operators with a proven track record of destroying families. Jake looked at Emma sleeping peacefully in her car seat, realizing that even his love for the baby had been weaponized against him. She used Emma as leverage to manipulate my emotions and make me more vulnerable to financial exploitation. That's exactly right, I said. Every time you questioned an expense or noticed money missing, Sarah would redirect your attention to Emma's needs or future security. She made you feel guilty for questioning expenses that were actually funding her criminal activities. The evidence showed that Sarah had been preparing to disappear with substantial assets within the next 6 months. She and Derek had researched new identities, established bank accounts in different states, and planned to abandon both Jake and Emma once they had extracted maximum financial value from our family. But there's one more thing, I said, preparing to reveal the final and most personal betrayal. Sarah wasn't just planning to steal our money and disappear. She was planning to destroy Jake's reputation and teaching career in the process. The most damaging evidence emerged from Sarah's communications with Derek about their exit strategy. Janet Mills had obtained court orders to access deleted text messages and emails that revealed Sarah's plan to destroy Jake's career and reputation as they prepared to disappear with stolen assets. Look at these messages, I said, showing Jake conversations between Sarah and Derek from the previous month. She was planning to file false domestic abuse allegations against you, claiming that you had become violent and unstable after discovering her affair. The goal was to discredit your testimony about the financial theft while generating sympathy for her as a victim. Jake's hands trembled as he read messages detailing how Sarah planned to document fake injuries, create false evidence of threatening behavior, and manipulate the legal system to portray herself as an abused wife who had been driven to desperate financial measures by an abusive husband. She took photographs of Emma crying and planned to claim you had been violent toward the baby. I continued watching Jake's face crumble as he realized how thoroughly his trust had been betrayed. Derek was prepared to testify as a witness to your supposed violent behavior, claiming he had intervened to protect Sarah and Emma from your abuse. The false domestic abuse allegations were designed to accomplish multiple goals. Sarah would gain legal protection from prosecution by claiming she had been coerced into financial crimes by an abusive husband. Jake's teaching career would be destroyed by the allegations preventing him from pursuing legal action to recover stolen money. Most importantly, Sarah would gain custody of Emma and access to child support payments that would continue the financial exploitation. Your principal received an anonymous letter last month questioning your fitness to work with children, I said, showing Jake a copy of the letter that Janet had traced back to Sarah. She was already planting seeds of doubt about your character and stability at work, preparing the groundwork for more serious allegations. Helen gasped as she realized the full scope of Sarah's manipulation. She was willing to destroy Jake's entire life, his career, his reputation, everything just to steal money from us. The evidence showed that Sarah had researched domestic abuse support organizations, learned the language and procedures used in protective order applications, and studied successful cases where women had gained legal protection and financial support through abuse allegations. She had even practiced creating fake injuries using makeup techniques learned from online tutorials. Derek's role was to serve as the protective boyfriend who rescued Sarah from her abusive husband. I said, showing family members text messages where Derek and Sarah rehearsed their false testimony. They planned to present themselves as tragic lovers who had been forced together by Jake's violence and instability. Frank's face reflected horror and rage as he processed the criminal conspiracy. They were going to destroy Jake's life and steal everything from our family, then disappear and start over somewhere else with new identities. The legal preparation extended beyond false allegations to comprehensive identity theft and financial fraud. Sarah had collected enough personal information about family members to apply for credit cards, business loans, and even mortgage applications using our identities. She had researched bankruptcy procedures, planning to file fraudulent claims that would protect stolen assets while leaving family members responsible for debts they never incurred. She had already applied for 3 credit cards using Dad's personal information, I said, showing Frank the applications that had been flagged by security systems. If those applications had been approved, she could have run up $50,000 in debt under his name before disappearing. Jake discovered that Sarah had been secretly recording conversations with him, editing them to create false evidence of threatening behavior and emotional instability. She had manipulated discussions about finances, childcare, and family relationships to make Jake appear controlling and potentially dangerous. Every private conversation we had about money, about Emma, about our future together, she was recording and editing to use against me. Jake said, his voice filled with disbelief. She turned intimate moments between husband and wife into weapons for destroying my life. The sophistication of the legal trap became clear as I revealed Sarah's research into protective order procedures, divorce law, and criminal prosecution guidelines. She had studied cases where financial crimes had been overlooked in favor of protecting alleged abuse, victims planning to use the legal system's bias toward protecting women and children as cover for her criminal activities. Sarah contacted 3 different domestic abuse attorneys, shopping for one who would aggressively pursue charges against you while minimizing questions about her financial activities. I said, showing Jake consultation records that Janet had obtained through legal discovery. She was building a team of advocates who would fight to protect her from prosecution while destroying your life. The conspiracy included plans for Derek to establish a new identity in a different state, where he and Sarah would continue their criminal activities, targeting new families. They had researched communities with significant populations of young professionals, teachers, and small business owners who would make ideal targets for their marriage fraud schemes. This wasn't their first time, and it wouldn't have been their last, I said, looking around the table at family members who were still processing the scope of the criminal enterprise. Sarah and Derek are career criminals who specialize in destroying families and stealing life savings through romance fraud and identity theft. Helen clutched her chest as she realized how close the family had come to complete financial destruction. If you hadn't investigated this, Jake could have lost his career. We could have lost our retirement savings, and Sarah would have disappeared with Emma and everything we've worked for. That's exactly right, I said, pulling out my phone as police sirens became audible in the distance. Which is why this entire barbecue was a carefully planned trap to expose Sarah's crimes in front of witnesses who could testify about her admissions and reactions. Jake looked at me with new understanding and gratitude. You knew Dad was going to announce the house transfer. You planned all of this. I coordinated with my attorney to expose everything publicly so the family would witness Sarah's true nature before she could execute her exit strategy and disappear with our assets, I said as police cars pulled into the driveway. Sometimes, the only way to protect family is to force the truth into the open even when it's painful. Detective Maria Santos and her partner Detective James Webb approached the backyard with the practiced calm of experienced investigators who had dealt with domestic fraud cases before. I had been working with Detective Santos for 3 weeks, providing evidence and coordinating the timing of Sarah's arrest to maximize the recovery of stolen assets and prevent her escape. Sarah Martinez. Detective Santos said, approaching the picnic table where Sarah sat frozen in terror. You're under arrest for identity theft, bank fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit theft. You have the right to remain silent. Sarah's desperate attempt to flee was anticipated and futile. Derek's pickup truck was already surrounded by patrol cars in the driveway, and Derek himself was being arrested simultaneously at his gym across town. The coordinated arrest ensured that neither conspirator could warn the other or attempt to destroy evidence. Wait, please, Sarah sobbed as Detective Webb applied handcuffs. I have a baby. Emma needs her mother. This is all a misunderstanding. Ma'am, the baby will be cared for by family members while you're processed, Detective Santos replied professionally. The charges against you are based on substantial evidence of financial crimes spanning multiple years. This isn't a misunderstanding. Jake's world continued crumbling as he realized the full implications of Emma's paternity and Sarah's criminal activities. The baby he had loved and raised for 6 months wasn't his biological daughter, and her mother was a career criminal who had manipulated his emotions to facilitate theft and fraud. What happens to Emma now? Jake asked Detective Santos, his voice breaking, as he looked at the sleeping baby who had been weaponized against him. Child Protective Services will work with family members to ensure the child's welfare, Detective Santos explained. Given that you're listed as the legal father on the birth certificate and have been the primary caregiver, the courts will consider your petition for custody favorably, especially considering the mother's criminal activities. Frank finally understood that my investigation had saved the family from catastrophic financial and legal consequences. Lou, I owe you an apology. If you hadn't exposed all of this, Sarah would have destroyed Jake's career, stolen our life savings, and disappeared with Emma. We would have lost everything. Helen embraced me tearfully, her earlier criticism forgotten in the face of evidence showing how thoroughly the family had been manipulated. I called you selfish and irresponsible. I'm so sorry. You protected all of us from criminals who would have ruined our lives. The investigation revealed connections to other victims throughout the state. Derek's gym membership records provided law enforcement with a database of potential targets, and Sarah's employment history at the medical office gave investigators access to identity theft victims who hadn't yet discovered the crimes committed against them. We've identified at least 12 other families who were targeted by this conspiracy, Detective Santos explained. Your investigation provided the breakthrough we needed to connect multiple unsolved fraud cases throughout the region. Jake's colleagues at the elementary school received notification that the anonymous letter questioning his fitness to work with children had been part of a criminal conspiracy designed to destroy his reputation. Principal Williams personally apologized for giving any credence to the false allegations and assured Jake that his teaching position was secure. Carmen Martinez has been terminated from her position at the school, Principal Williams told Jake during a private meeting. The district is implementing new security protocols to prevent employees from accessing and sharing personal information about colleagues. The financial recovery process began immediately, with Janet Mills working alongside law enforcement to trace stolen assets and identify bank accounts where Derek and Sarah had hidden money stolen from multiple families. Jake's savings account was frozen to prevent further theft, and credit monitoring services were established to protect family members from additional identity theft attempts. We've recovered approximately $60,000 from accounts Derek and Sarah controlled, Janet reported to the family. However, full financial recovery will take time as we work through the legal system to reclaim assets and pursue restitution from criminal proceedings. The extended family members who had initially supported the house transfer plan publicly apologized for their earlier criticism and praised my protective instincts. Uncle Marcus admitted that Sarah had questioned him extensively about his construction business finances, and Aunt Diane realized that Sarah's casual inquiries about banking procedures had been intelligence gathering for criminal purposes. "She fooled all of us," Marcus said during a family meeting to discuss the ongoing legal proceedings. Sarah presented herself as the perfect daughter-in-law while systematically planning to destroy our family financially and emotionally. Jake began attending counseling sessions to process the betrayal and develop healthy relationship patterns for the future. The psychological manipulation he had endured was extensive, affecting his self-confidence, his ability to trust others, and his understanding of genuine versus manipulated emotions. "I keep questioning every memory of our relationship," Jake told me during one of our private conversations. Was anything Sarah said or did genuine, or was it all just performance designed to manipulate my feelings? "The important thing is that you're free from the manipulation now," I replied. "You can learn to recognize genuine relationships and protect yourself from future predators. Sarah's criminal behavior reflects on her character, not yours." The legal proceedings moved forward rapidly as prosecutors built cases against both Sarah and Derek for multiple felony charges. The evidence I had collected combined with law enforcement investigations provided overwhelming proof of systematic criminal activity that could result in significant prison sentences. Sarah faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted on all charges, District Attorney Patricia Chen explained during a victim impact meeting. Derek faces similar charges plus additional counts related to his role in organizing the criminal conspiracy and recruiting family members to participate in identity theft. Jake's decision about Emma's custody became the most emotionally challenging aspect of the entire situation. Despite learning that Emma wasn't his biological daughter, Jake had formed a genuine parental bond with the baby during her first 6 months of life. He petitioned the court for custody while Derek remained in jail awaiting trial. "Emma is innocent in all of this," Jake explained to the family. "She needs stability and love regardless of her biological parentage. I've been her father since birth, and I want to continue raising her if the court allows it." The custody hearing resulted in Jake being awarded full legal guardianship of Emma, with Derek's parental rights being terminated due to his criminal convictions and abandonment of the child. Sarah's rights were suspended pending the outcome of her criminal trial, but her fraudulent activities and planned abandonment of Emma supported Jake's custody petition. 6 months after the arrest, both Sarah and Derek were convicted on multiple felony charges and sentenced to substantial prison terms. Sarah received 12 years in federal prison for identity theft, bank fraud, and conspiracy charges. Derek received 14 years for his leadership role in the criminal organization and his responsibility for recruiting family members to participate in the fraud. "Justice has been served," Detective Santos told me during the final case review. "Your investigation prevented additional families from being victimized and helped us dismantle a sophisticated criminal network that had been operating for several years." The financial restitution process recovered most of the stolen money, allowing Jake to rebuild his savings and establish financial security for himself and Emma. The family's retirement accounts and property remained protected, and the credit monitoring services prevented additional identity theft attempts. 1 year after that devastating 4th of July barbecue, our family gathered again in the same backyard for Emma's second birthday celebration. The atmosphere was completely different from the previous year's tension and manipulation. Jake had transformed into a confident single father who understood the difference between genuine love and emotional manipulation. Emma was walking and talking, calling Jake Daddy with the pure affection of a child who knew she was loved and protected. "I can't believe how much has changed in just 1 year," Jake said, watching Emma play with Buddy in the grass. "Last year, I thought I had everything figured out with my marriage and family life. I had no idea I was living in a complete fantasy built on lies and manipulation." Frank approached me with the humility of a man who had learned painful lessons about judgment and family loyalty. Lou, I need to say this again in front of everyone. My announcement about the house transfer was wrong on multiple levels. I let traditional expectations blind me to the real threats facing our family. Your investigation saved all of us from financial ruin and protected Jake from career destruction. Helen had developed a much closer relationship with me over the past year, respecting my analytical thinking and protective instincts, rather than criticizing my lifestyle choices. I spent years pressuring you to get married and settle down, not realizing that your careful approach to relationships was actually wisdom. You saw through Sarah's manipulation when the rest of us were fooled by her performance. The family's perspective on my single lifestyle had evolved completely. Instead of viewing my independence as selfishness or immaturity, they now understood that my cautious approach to relationships had protected me from manipulation, while allowing me to maintain the resources and freedom necessary to protect them when criminals targeted our family. Your analytical skills and investigative instincts saved our family, Uncle Marcus said during the birthday celebration. If you had been married with children of your own, you might not have had the time or resources to conduct such a thorough investigation of Sarah's activities. Jake's dating life had resumed gradually, but with much greater wisdom about recognizing genuine versus manipulated emotions. He attended support groups for victims of financial abuse and learned to identify red flags that he had missed during his relationship with Sarah. His new relationships were built on mutual respect and genuine compatibility, rather than emotional manipulation and manufactured crisis. I'm taking things much slower now, Jake explained to me during a private conversation. I'm learning to trust my instincts and question inconsistencies instead of making excuses for suspicious behavior. The counseling has helped me understand how predators exploit people's desire for love and acceptance. Emma's custody arrangement remained stable and positive. Despite not being Jake's biological daughter, she thrived under his care and developed a secure attachment to him as her primary parent. Derek's imprisonment and conviction meant that he had no legal rights regarding Emma's welfare, and Sarah's continued incarceration eliminated any possibility of her disrupting Emma's stable home life. Emma doesn't remember Sarah, and I think that's probably for the best, Jake said, watching her chase butterflies in the garden. She'll know the truth about her biological parents when she's old enough to understand, but for now, she has the security of knowing she's loved and wanted by the family that chose to keep her safe. My own romantic life had evolved in ways that surprised the family. 6 months after Sarah's arrest, I introduced them to Amanda Chen, a cybersecurity specialist who had actually helped analyze the digital evidence against Sarah and Derek. Our relationship had been developing privately for 18 months, but I had kept it confidential to protect Amanda from family pressure and expectations. Amanda's expertise in financial fraud investigations was invaluable. I explained to the family during our announcement. She helped trace the digital trail of Sarah and Derek's criminal activities and assisted law enforcement in recovering stolen assets from multiple families. Frank's reaction to meeting Amanda was completely different from his previous criticism of my lifestyle. I'm impressed by both of your professional skills and the way you protected our family from sophisticated criminals. Your partnership clearly extends beyond romantic compatibility into genuine mutual support and shared values. Helen welcomed Amanda warmly, appreciating her intelligence and her contributions to protecting the family. I spent so much time worrying about Lou being alone that I never considered he might be building something meaningful with someone who truly understood and complemented his strengths. Amanda and I announced our engagement during Emma's birthday celebration, explaining that we had purchased a house together in the same neighborhood where Jake and Emma lived. The family's response was overwhelmingly positive, recognizing that our relationship was built on genuine compatibility and shared goals rather than social pressure or manufactured expectations. We're planning a small wedding next spring, Amanda told the family. Lou and I both prefer intimate gatherings with people we genuinely care about, rather than large social events designed to meet other people's expectations. Jake's career had flourished in the aftermath of the criminal case. His careful documentation of the fraud and his cooperation with law enforcement had earned recognition from the school district and the state education department. He was invited to speak at conferences about recognizing and preventing financial abuse, helping other potential victims learn from his experience. "I never thought I'd become an advocate for fraud prevention," Jake said during one of our family dinners. "But if sharing my story helps other people recognize manipulation and protect themselves from predators, then something positive can come from the worst experience of my life." The family's financial security had been fully restored through the restitution process and legal settlements with the criminal conspiracy. Jake's teaching retirement fund was rebuilt. Frank and Helen's accounts were protected and monitored, and everyone had received credit protection services to prevent future identity theft attempts. "We're more financially secure now than we were before the criminal activity began," Frank said during our quarterly family financial review meetings that we had instituted. "The legal settlements and recovered assets actually put us ahead of where we would have been without the fraud, though I wouldn't recommend that path to anyone. My relationship with Buddy the Golden Retriever had become a symbol of loyalty and unconditional love that the family now valued rather than dismissed. Emma adored playing with Buddy during family gatherings, and Jake often brought her to my house so she could interact with a pet while he decided whether to get a dog of his own. Buddy's constancy and loyalty taught me important lessons about genuine relationships," Jake reflected. "Dogs don't manipulate emotions or create artificial crises to get attention. They offer consistent love and support, which is actually much more valuable than the dramatic highs and lows that Sarah used to create artificial emotional intensity." The extended family gatherings had become more meaningful and authentic without Sarah's manipulation and hidden agendas. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Diane felt comfortable discussing their business and financial situations, openly knowing that family members weren't gathering intelligence for criminal purposes. "Our family conversations are much more honest now," Diane observed during Emma's birthday celebration. "We don't have to worry about someone taking mental notes about our personal information to use against us later. It's refreshing to just enjoy each other's company without hidden agendas." The legal aftermath of Sarah and Derek's criminal convictions had broader implications for community safety. Their arrest led to the discovery of similar fraud rings operating throughout the state, resulting in additional prosecutions, and the recovery of hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen from unsuspecting families. The investigation that Lou initiated ultimately protected dozens of families from financial fraud. Detective Santos told us during a community recognition ceremony. His willingness to trust his instincts and gather evidence professionally helped law enforcement dismantle a sophisticated criminal network that had been operating for years. Jake's relationship with Emma had deepened into genuine parental love that transcended biological connections. He had legally adopted Emma after Sarah's parental rights were terminated, giving Emma the security of knowing she would always be part of our family regardless of her biological origins. "Emma is my daughter in every way that matters," Jake said during the adoption celebration. "Biology doesn't determine family connections. Love, commitment, and protection determine family bonds. Emma will always know she was chosen and wanted by people who put her welfare above everything else." The family's understanding of relationships and marriage had evolved significantly. Instead of pressuring family members to conform to traditional timelines and expectations, we learned to value genuine compatibility, mutual support, and protective instincts over social conformity and surface appearances. We learned that a good marriage isn't just about finding someone who looks right or says the right things, Helen reflected during a quiet conversation. It's about finding someone whose actions consistently demonstrate love, respect, and genuine concern for your welfare. Sarah looked perfect on the surface, but her actions revealed her true character. As Emma's second birthday celebration wound down, I looked around at family members who had been through trauma and manipulation, but had emerged stronger and wiser. Jake was a confident single father who understood his worth and wouldn't accept manipulation in future relationships. Frank and Helen had learned to value protection over appearance and substance over social expectations. Emma was growing up in an environment of genuine love and security rather than manufactured drama and hidden agendas. The most important lesson from this entire experience is that family protection sometimes requires difficult choices, I said during my birthday speech for Emma. Sometimes protecting the people you love means investigating uncomfortable truths, confronting manipulation, and standing up to pressure from people who don't understand the real threats. True family loyalty means having the courage to act on evidence, rather than hoping problems will resolve themselves. Jake raised his glass in a toast that captured the growth and healing our family had experienced. To Lou, whose investigative skills and protective instincts saved our family from destruction. To Amanda, whose expertise helped bring criminals to justice. To Emma, who reminds us that love and security are the foundations of real family bonds. And to all of us for learning that genuine relationships are built on truth, respect, and mutual protection, rather than manipulation and hidden agendas. The birthday celebration ended with Emma falling asleep in Jake's arms while Buddy laid protectively beside them on the blanket. Amanda and I cleaned up the backyard while Frank and Helen discussed their retirement plans without fear of identity theft or financial manipulation. Uncle Marcus and Aunt Diane made plans for their next visit without worrying about sharing personal information with potential criminals. Our family had learned that true security comes from vigilance, honesty, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths rather than maintaining comfortable illusions. The house that Frank had wanted me to gift to Jake remained mine and Amanda's first shared home, while Jake built his own financial independence and housing security through his teaching career and legal settlements from the criminal case. Looking back, I'm grateful that you trusted your instincts and investigated Sarah's behavior, rather than just accepting the situation, Jake told me as we said goodnight. If you had gone along with Dad's house transfer plan, Sarah and Derek would have succeeded in their criminal conspiracy, and Emma and I would have lost everything along with the rest of the family. The golden retriever that Frank had once dismissed as inadequate compared to a wife and children had actually been a symbol of the loyalty, constancy, and protective instincts that genuine relationships require. Buddy's unconditional love had been more valuable than Sarah's manipulated emotions and manufactured crises. As Amanda and I drove home to the house we had chosen together based on genuine compatibility and shared goals, I reflected on the importance of trusting instincts and gathering evidence rather than accepting surface appearances. The family barbecue that had begun with pressure to give up my independence had ended with recognition that my analytical approach to relationships had protected everyone from sophisticated criminals. "Do you ever regret keeping our relationship private for so long?" Amanda asked as we pulled into our driveway. "Not at all," I replied, watching Buddy explore his new backyard. Privacy protected us from external pressure and manipulation while allowing our relationship to develop based on genuine compatibility rather than family expectations. We built something real together, which is exactly what Jake is learning to do in his own life. The lesson that emerged from our family's experience with manipulation and criminal fraud was that protective love sometimes requires uncomfortable investigation and difficult conversations, rather than blind trust and social conformity. Real family loyalty means having the courage to expose threats rather than maintaining peace through willful ignorance. 6 months later, Jake sent me a photo of Emma taking her first steps in the backyard where Sarah had once planned to destroy his life and steal our family's assets. Emma was walking toward Jake with absolute confidence that he would catch her and keep her safe, representing the genuine security that comes from authentic relationships built on truth and protective love. Have you ever had to choose between maintaining peace in your family and confronting uncomfortable truths that could protect people you love? Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is investigate suspicious behavior and gather evidence rather than hoping problems will resolve themselves. What would you have done if you discovered that a family member was being manipulated by criminals who plan to destroy everyone's financial security? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening to this story about the importance of trusting protective instincts and having the courage to act on evidence rather than accepting surface appearances. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about overcoming manipulation and protecting family, and share this with anyone who might benefit from learning about the warning signs of financial fraud and emotional manipulation. I hope your families are built on genuine love, honest communication, and mutual protection, rather than hidden agendas and manufactured expectations.